Thanks for staying with our special coverage of the FCT Council area elections. Now, joining us in the studio is Faith Nwadi. She's Center for Transparency Advocacy. She is an accredited electoral observer. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Well, I believe you have gone around the FCT, being that you are accredited to observe the elections. What would you say typically goes wrong in the early phase of local elections in Nigeria? And from what you've observed so far, how would you rate INEC's performance so far in terms of deployment, mobilization, scheduling, and all of that?
Thank you very much. So I've been able to go around a few places within the AMAC, from Gwarimpa to Use areas. In Gwarimpa, I went to the RAC Center. I first went to some polling units and found that INEC had not deployed to the polling units. So I went to the RAC Center at GSS Life Camp, and I saw that they were just making arrangements to begin the movement to the polling units. But I must commend the police. The reason for that is that most of the polling units I visited this morning, I saw the police already on ground. You know, and then when you ask, and they're saying, oh, INEC is not here yet, but they have been deployed here. That's an improvement.
Well, it's quite different from the feelers we got from the field from our correspondent, because yes, she was saying there was late deployment, and you are aware that there's a curfew, and there was a little to no compliance with that curfew that was issued. So when you say you commend the police for early deployment.
Because they're already on ground. The places I went to, I'm talking about the places I went to, and I saw them already on ground, around Gwarimpa. But INEC was not there. Okay. So I went to the RAC Center at GSS Life Camp, and I saw that they were just making arrangements to leave the RAC Center. You know that they deployed to the RAC Center a night before the elections. Yeah. On Thursday, they moved materials to the local government headquarters. From local government headquarters, they go to RAC centers. Then from RAC centers, they go to the polling unit. Interestingly, when I was driving in here, the polling unit by your junction, they were just setting up. Okay. So the deployment is slow because by 8:30, polls are supposed to open. But I don't think their polls will open at 8:30, perhaps maybe a little bit later than that.
Okay, from also talking about what you've observed so far, you say you didn't see INEC officials on ground by the police. Is it that they're expecting that the security personnel will ensure that, look, that place is secured before materials arrive? Probably that suggests why they kind of stayed back, for them to be sure that you have policemen, security men on ground first before you deploy sensitive materials?
No, the process is that from the RAC Center, police is supposed to escort them to the polling unit. Okay. So the police at the polling unit are not the ones that are at the RAC Center. Oh. You're supposed to have police escort materials to the polling unit and escort them back after election. So sometimes it's either the logistics of the vehicles or that the police people were not there. But I saw a lot of police people on ground in the Life Camp RAC Center and the vehicles. In fact, they were looking for some of the drivers to move the vehicle this morning. As at 7:50 when I got there, that was when they started getting into the vehicles to leave the place.
Just quickly, your group, the group you represent, do you have observers across different area councils, and is there a way you get information from them if they've updated you what is happening in their own end also?
So as at this, before I got here, most of them also were having the same problems. INEC was not at the polling units yet. They were still at the RAC centers, because we have observers at the RAC centers and observers at the polling units. So you have a situation whereby at the RAC centers, they are making arrangements to go. And I want to also say something that we noticed, unlike before. When you get to the RAC center, you see buses parked, but the drivers will say they have not paid them. Oh. But this time, you see buses parked and they're trying to make movement. They're looking for the drivers to come and take the people away from there. Sometimes also you have problem of not having enough vehicles to take the ad hoc staff to their polling unit. But now you have vehicles. I saw vehicles, I don't want to mention the name of the companies that I saw, but I saw vehicles that were parked there and that would be enough to take people to their different polling units.
All right. Which local council would you say poses the biggest challenge in terms of coverage, deployment, and security?
That's AMAC. because the total number of registered voters in AMAC is almost 50% of the total number of registered voters across the 6 area councils. So when you have that number, for instance, when you come down to AMAC, you want to also look at Gwarimpa. The Gwarimpa area is very large and it's just one ward. And when you talk about Gwarimpa, it includes parts of Day, it includes life camp, you know, it's that large and you have just one ward for that. So how are you going to manage that? And there's that rack center at the GSS life camp. So you look at Gwarimpa, then also you want to look at Abuja, because of course it's a border town. And you know that because you have also restricted movement, there's going to be a lot of roadblocks around there. So these are the 2 local government areas I'll say. But some areas in Kuje, for instance, a place like Godoji in Kuje Area Council, it's quite far. It's one of the least accessible areas that you have within Kuje local government area. So anything can happen there, except you have enough security. Luckily, we have one observer that will be observing in that particular community, and we're waiting to hear the results that will come from there. So for us, AMAC, because of the size of AMAC, because of the number of registered voters, and you know there's something about the FCT elections. A lot of people play down on the FCT elections. But if you look at the number of registered voters in the FCT, it's actually more than the number of registered voters in Ekiti.
Exactly.
And more than the registered voters in Bayelsa. So even though for instance, we're going to go to Ekiti later in the year for the elections. So the FCT election should not be downplayed. It should be looked at as a strategic election that we impute into further elections that are coming, and most importantly, the 2027 election. Okay,
let's look at this other aspect, this particular election, with what you have seen on ground. During your interaction with INEC and other critical stakeholders, did you raise some of these concerns, like you talked about an area in Kuje, you talked about the likely challenge in Abuja? Did you raise some of these concerns so that they'll be aware that, look, as an observer, these are areas of critical concern that, look, probably you should have more deployment of personnel or early deployment of personnel? Did you raise this conversation, and what was their reaction?
We did raise, and we are sure that they have all of those in view, and they have taken care of the deployment. For instance, with the police, they talked about the strike force and the number of personnel that they were going to have per polling unit. But what we usually see on ground is, we have not seen that yet because it's still early in the day. You see that there are some polling units that they have some kind of political interest. So the police tells you we are going to deploy 4 personnel per polling unit. And you go to a particular polling unit, you're seeing like 12, 20. And you're going to another particular polling unit, you're just seeing 2 or even 1 security personnel. But one thing I must give to the security personnel now is that there's better synergy. In the past, you will hear road safety tell you the number they're deploying, civil defense will tell you, but now it is the police that is speaking, because it is actually the police as the co-chair with the INEC chairman on ISIS. And it is the police that coordinates the security. So police is telling you we're coming out with 23,000 and more. They're not saying only police officers, but they're saying other security agencies. And then we have also visited other security agencies, and they're telling us, oh, we're sending vehicles to the police, we're sending men to the police. It wasn't usually like that. So the synergy is there. Those are some of the good things we are seeing coming out of this election.
And let's talk about women participation in this particular election. We just hear that 3 women are contesting the position of chairman, just 3. This isn't not so impressive. What do you have to say about that?
It's quite unfortunate, and that's why we are asking for some of the things we're asking for when it comes to women's participation. Over the years, the space has not been very conducive for women to participate in the electoral process. And you have 3 women. The question is, what is the likelihood that these 3 women would even emerge?
Let's not even go into that conversation now. Let's not even go into that conversation now.
So
they're all on the ballot, whether a female
that's what I'm saying,
or a
but
male.
it's important we put that also on the table.
Maybe after today we can talk about that.
Fine.
Yeah. So tell us what you're expecting. You talked about certain improvements in the level of deployment and the procedures so far. But our correspondent just confirmed that they've not even noticed anybody around. Yeah, we still know there's still time between now and between now and 2:30. Do you expect that those 24, that particular polling unit you just described, that those 24 people will actually come out to?
We hope that they will come out. But you're also aware that in four polling units there will be no election. 3 in Gariki and 1 in around Jiwa also.
That is disturbing.
Because they don't have any registered voters in those polling units.
And that is why it is disturbing.
It is disturbing.
Why is it that way?
It's because people have not transferred. You remember INEC had to decongest polling units some years ago. And people were supposed to also transfer to those polling units that are close to them.
Okay.
Because people complain about movement on election day. So some of these polling units were decongested.
Okay.
But as we speak, there are some polling units, even within Gariki, that have only 2 registered voters.
But there is also an issue of sensitization on the part of INEC, and enough awareness is not being created.
Exactly.
Would you say this also contributed to this problem?
Yeah, it could also have contributed to the problem. And also because of the fact that a lot of Nigerians think that the issue around electionary period shouldn't be part of the whole conversation. So it's important that INEC, not just INEC, but National Orientation Agency too, should take up this responsibility. We do our part as civil society. Before the elections, we went out to the area councils to talk to people.
All right.
We do that. But one thing I have to put on the table that is also our concern is the issue of vote buying. I've not started saying that. But prior to the election, when we went to the communities to talk to people, they were asking us for money.
So they were willing to sell their votes at that point.
So they were asking us for money before they could even collect the flyers or even listen to us. So you can imagine that going into an election like this.
So there's an active person asking.
So
let's quickly talk to you. Gwagwalada, just like you noticed, vehicles are on ground and waiting to move to various polling units. INEC, and also security, the curfew is not properly enforced. Is it not disturbing that we say what we don't really mean? If 30 INEC officials have not deployed in that particular location, the curfew, like he said, and other places, not strictly enforced.
Yeah, well, at times there may be some challenges that we are not seeing, but again, it's important that we walk the talk. It's important that we walk the talk, because for RAC centers, the ad hoc staff were supposed to sleep at the RAC center with security personnel. Like again in the past, what the trend in the past was that they will be waiting for security personnel to come.
Yeah.
But now you have security personnel on ground waiting for them to come. So, but the picture I saw there, I didn't see any ad hoc staff. I wonder if that particular place where he's standing is a RAC center. Because if it's a RAC center, there will be a beehive of activities there. You will see a lot of ad hoc staff. You will see vehicles and their drivers. You will see security operatives. Even if they are not moving, but you will see them at the background. But that place seems to be very quiet. So I don't know exactly where that place is. Because for Gwagwalada area council, you have different RAC centers depending on the number of wards that they have there. By the way, the RAC centers are also wards when you put it in the political parlance. So if where he is a RAC center, there should be that activity. But if it's not a RAC center, I heard him talk about local government headquarters. Local government headquarters usually is not a RAC center. They would have done the deployment from local government headquarters yesterday to the RAC center. Perhaps if we get information back from the RAC center, we will understand what is really happening in Gwagwalada. But I can tell you that our observers from Kuje and Kwali are already reporting opening of polls in those local government areas.
Okay, that's Kuje Kwali already reporting polls. That is quite encouraging that we have in this. And going by the regulations, the guidelines of INEC between 8:30 to 2:30. Now, if we have this late start in some places, would you expect that there will be that definite? What will happen? Do you expect that they will also close at that time? The voter will need to know.
You know, closing of election at 2:30 depends on the number of people on the queue as at 2:30. So if you have, say you have 100 people in a particular polling unit, and as at 2:30 you still have 50 people on the queue,
You still have to wait.
The police officer or the security officer, they will go to stand at the back of the last person. And so they will have ensure that those 50 people vote. So it depends on when the last person on the queue votes. That's when you can say that polls close in that particular polling unit. Sometimes you see some polls closing 3:30 because of the number of people there. So citizens don't come out on time. This issue of African time, Nigerian time, we still put it into election. So elections are supposed to open by 8:30. What it means is that by 8:30, the ad hoc staff should already be addressing voters on what they should do and don't do at the election ground, the polling unit. But you don't have them there. So you have a station whereby polls open between 9, 10, 11 because of these issues of lateness. And this is one of the priority areas we'll be saying INEC should look at the issue of logistics. Now again, if you understand the elections and how they work, on election day or the election period, INEC is everything. Yeah. INEC is water board, INEC is energy company, INEC is logistics, and people also blame INEC for security. But there are different people who have to do all of this and to support INEC and the work that they do. So if at 9 o'clock there's not been any deployment, you don't expect that polls will open early. But from the reports we're getting, like in Buhari, Pape area, some areas there they have started the election. I told you as I was coming, I saw the polling unit just in front of your place here, setting up, but there have been no voters. So it's important to do that. And back to your point about information dissemination, a lot of people don't know that there's a link on INEC's website that can help them locate where the polling unit is. A lot of people don't know that.
So voter education is key.
Voter education is key.
So what would you say, very, very quickly before we let you go, we seem to see a rise in political consciousness, especially surrounding this FCT poll, which was not the usual mode. Would you say that this is just as a result of rating political influence ahead of the 2027 general elections? And can you say that this election is still local, even if we see that there is little interest at the moment on the part of voters?
Well, people describe the election as local because it's a local government election. But I say that an election that is happening at the federal capital shouldn't be described as a local election. You can actually take that as a national election. I just told you the sheer number of registered voters. The sheer number of polling units, 2,822 polling units. And if everything goes well within this election, it has a lot to do in the forthcoming elections that we're having. Not just that it is an election that is happening within the federal capital, but it is an election that is conducted by INEC, unlike the other elections that are conducted by the SECs of their states.
All right. We must say thank you so much for your contributions on the program this morning. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.